My 24 male fiancé, 24 female, insists that we take care of her autistic younger brother, 21 male. My fiancé and I have talked about this a few times, and it always ends with her angry and crying. I love her so much, but I cannot get past this point. Here's the issue. She has a younger brother I've known about since we've dated in college. He's a very low-functioning autistic, to the extent that he will need full-time supervision and care for the rest of his adult life. He's a sweetheart and a great kid. And he and my fiancé are about as close as siblings can get. We want kids, but whenever we get on the topic, she brings up her brother and talks about how you won't even notice he's there, and that he can really take care of himself, he just needs some supervision is all. I've taken a lot of time to consider it. And as much as I like her brother, I'm not marrying her for her family. She wants us to take care of him alongside our children, to live with us as soon as I'm done with med school until presumably, we die. I've told her I love her brother, but I don't want him to live with us and our kids, if we choose to have them. Her parents are two wonderful people, and I feel they are much more equipped to take care of him like they have the last 21 years. My position is that he will be happier and better taken care of with his parents, and that it is their responsibility to do so. As far as I'm aware, they're planning on doing this anyway, but every time my fiancé and I have this conversation it ends with tears. TLDR, my fiancé wants us to take care of her autistic younger brother. I don't think it would be best for him or us. We are not as well equipped as her parents to do so.
Now to the comments. My friend has two autistic siblings who require full-time care, and their parents are older. She got married a couple years ago. One thing she made clear to her husband from when they started dating was that she was going to take over caring for her siblings one day. He decided he was okay with that and married her knowing that was their plan. This really is something that needs to be worked out before marriage though, and it's not really an area where you two can compromise. Taking care of a disabled person is hard work, and you'll resent her if you get forced into it, but she'll resent you if she has to put her brother in a care home. This might be a situation where your goals are just not compatible, and it is a deal breaker.
My significant other has a severely disabled brother and he needs to care for him regularly because his father isn't in the picture and his mother realistically can't do it on her own. He doesn't have a choice in this, and while he loves his brother dearly, I sometimes notice he resents the situation he is out in by the father and his mother. He lost a huge chunk of his childhood because he has to care for him. He had to quit jobs, take breaks from university, etc. He loves his brother. But he regularly has fights with mom. He doesn't want kids for another 10 years at least, since he's basically taken care of one for as long as he lives. And what's even worse is he feels so guilty and becomes incredibly defensive every time he confides in me about it. OP. This is a conversation you should resolve immediately if you're planning on marrying this woman. It should have been resolved long ago. Disabled people are incredibly hard work and you two seem to be at an impasse. You need to realize you will be giving up things you can't even think of right now if you agree to this. You're not wrong for not wanting to take care of him, but neither is she for wanting to. I know this sub loves to recommend breaking up, but this truly is a deal-breaker situation. You will both be unhappy without finding some middle ground to stand on. That being said, there are also resources you could look into if you're set on making your so happy. You just have to look into it. Maybe not have him stay with you full-time but only on weekends and holidays, etc.
This is a deal breaker. The only way you can go forward with this relationship and your planned marriage is if you are 100% okay with you and your fiancé being lifetime guardians and caregivers for the brother. This isn't something that you can change her mind on without a lifetime of resentment. Even if parents continue to care for the boy, they will get too old to do so someday, and this subject is certain to resurface in the future. I feel sorry for you as you have a very serious decision to make. Think of the life you want and choose wisely.
Totally agree. In addition, I feel that the fiancé doesn't have a realistic vision of what it will be like to take in her brother. It doesn't sound at all like you won't even notice he's there. If that was the case, he could live independently. I also wonder if the fiancé even discussed her plans with her parents, as they seem unaware. It seems like she drew up a plan where she's a kind of Florence Nightingale for her brother, but hasn't actually thought it out very well.
If your fiancé agrees with your proposal, what is the plan when her parents find that they can no longer care for him? Will you then take him in forever?
What generally happens is they will move into a group home or live with a provider who will be paid by the state to take care of them. They can still maintain a relationship with him and have him over for visits. Having worked in this field, it is a full-time job to take care of an individual with the challenges OP has described. It is not easy. And the timing is terrible also. After he graduates medical school, he'll be working 100-hour weeks as a resident. There is no way this can work if the fiancé wants to work outside the home. There should be a day program he can go to for 6 hours a day MF so his parents get a break each day. Giving the parents a break by taking him in on the occasional weekend is also an option.
I'm sorry to tell you, but this sounds like an incompatibility and may mean the end of your relationship.
I agree with this, OP. It's okay for her to want to live with her brother, and it is okay for you not to. It just means that you're on two different paths. It sucks, but just another example that with relationships sometimes love isn't enough. Logistics are very important for a compatible relationship.
You might not be able to live together if you can't live with your brother-in-law and she is determined that she should care for him. It's unfortunate, but you must resolve this before you get married. Nobody's bad or wrong, but you both have to decide if this is a deal breaker.
This is not going to change. It will just divide your relationship further. You could compromise and let him live with you, but you will resent him and eventually her. You might not ever say anything, but your children and the brother will pick up on it. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, it's sad, but given that she gets angry and cries every time they have this discussion, I don't think she's going to change her opinion.
Your fiancé needs to have this conversation with her parents. She needs to know what their plans are, and what arrangements/plans are in place for her brother should her parents not be able to care for him. Depending on your relationship dynamic, perhaps you could also be part of this conversation. It might be helpful for you to hear it directly from her parents, and not through her as a translator. But this is a conversation that needs to happen. It's actually way overdue. She shouldn't be feeling this pressure or framing this fantasy without a very clear conversation with her parents.
I wonder if her parents are even aware she wants to do this.
You're free to leave if you don't want to care for him. You might just be incompatible. Nobody is wrong here. She's not wrong to want to care for him. You're not wrong to say no. She's either being dishonest, though, or extremely naive to claim you won't even notice he's there. If this is what she truly wants, it just means that marriage should not be in the cards for you two. She needs to use that as a learning experience though, and be clear about that from the get-go with anyone she dates in the future, not tell someone this as they plan a life together. This is something she should have told you long before you got engaged. I would just tell her, I am not equipped to care for him. This is not something I can do or want to do. If this is something you insist on doing, then I respect that, but it means we won't be together. It's not an ultimatum, it's just the truth. We all have deal breakers. This is clearly one for her. Decide if this is one for you. If it is, that's fine. If you think you can live with taking care of her brother with all the money, restrictions, etc. that it will require, then do that. Don't marry each other with both of you thinking the other person will change their mind in the future. #X200B. Sometimes people love each other but they have deal breakers about money, children, religion, etc. That's fine, so long as everyone is on the same page.
I have an autistic brother, and I made it very clear to my boyfriend early on in the relationship that if anything ever happens to my parents, and they're not there anymore, I am going to take care of my brother, as in, he will live with us. I'll work and look after him to the best of my abilities. My boyfriend was very supportive and loves my baby brother, but I can assure you if he had had any doubts, I would have ended the relationship right there in those early stages, because I have always known I was going to look after my brother. I don't know what else to say other than, this isn't something that can be compromised on. You and your fiancé need to talk and reach a decision wisely.
I've taken a lot of time to consider it, and as much as I like her brother, I'm not marrying her for her family. Yeah. So you may not be marrying her for her family, but her family is a part of the deal. At some point her parents will pass, and unless he dies before them, responsibility for caring for him will pass on to the two of you. That's basically inevitable. That she wants him to move in well before that eventuality is something that you can try and convince her is unwise and unnecessary. You've received some solid advice on how to approach that topic. But at some level, they're a package deal. Her relationship with her brother will impact where you can move and a host of other decisions down the line. You need to be okay with that.
I think this reply spells it out best. You and the fiancé need to have a sit down and discuss all the possibilities they could potentially unfold in regards to her brother's care. You need to honestly reflect on the level of involvement you are comfortable with, and she needs to reflect on the realities of the challenges being his caretaker will bring. She may think that she knows based on growing up with him, but things look different when you are the one in the driver's seat. A therapist might be a good idea for the both of you. This is a deal-breaker issue that needs to be resolved before you take the next steps in your relationship.
Speaking from my experience working in a care home for adults with disabilities, if he is actually what is known as low functioning, she's absolutely wrong that her brother just needs some supervision is all. It's a full-time job. All of the residents still had family visits and/or outings, so it's not like they get sent off somewhere and never see their family again. But taking care of adults in that position is hard work, and honestly, there are times where I had to clock out an hour early because I just couldn't handle it at the end of a particularly stressful shift. There are plenty of people that take care of family members with different impairments, but it's a hell of a commitment, and if you're both not 100% on board, you will build resentment and it will kill your relationship.
I've worked at multiple group homes, and there's a huge range in who is eligible. Yes, I've worked in homes that were exhausting, particularly the homes with individuals with more aggressive tendencies, but I've also worked with others that were able to hold part-time jobs and were pleasant people. Some I would consider to have lived with me. While it's possible that she's wrong, it's also possible that his definition of extremely low functioning is skewed, and he is underestimating his future Bill's abilities.
You both have the right to feel and want what you want. To be fair, parents don't live forever. So, at some point he's going to need a caregiver. This may be a non-negotiable for her. I also don't blame her. And you may have had the expectation that you aren't marrying her family. It doesn't matter who you marry, you basically are.
Don't marry her with hopes of her changing her mind. She wants to take care of her brother. When her parents get too old or pass away, you will be taking care of him 100%. If you're not willing to do that, don't continue this relationship, because clearly this is a deal breaker for her, and you have to be honest with yourself if you really don't want to take care of him, not now, not in a future.
You'd seriously bet better off ending this relationship if you don't want the brother. She'll just resent you, and/or force it upon you when her parents die. I don't blame you either. This times 1,000 times. OP in 2021, a lot of couples do not want their own kids who needs parents' supervision for as far as 18 years, let alone taking care of an adult for the rest of their lives. The way you describe your fiancé's stance on this makes me think she doesn't want to get married and wants out, or else why she would be so adamant in taking care of her brother without knowing what her parents want. Get out before you do something stupid and resent each other for the rest of your life.
So I have a younger autistic sister, and this has always been my plan. To take over her care. As such, I did exactly what your fiancé did. Spoke to my husband about the future. He decided he was okay with it. So, we moved forward. If he hadn't been, it would have been a deal breaker. That being said, my mom doesn't want my sister to affect my life negatively and so has worked to get her into assisted living, which is where she is now. We see her multiple times a week. I take her out on day trips, etc. And actually, I think that's better. At the end of the day, she is only 2 years younger than me. How would I take care of her when I'm 74 and she is 72? I might not be capable. I may have my own health concerns, etc. Maybe talk about this possibility. What if she physically can't care for her brother in the future? See if she is willing to work on a different plan. If not, unfortunately you aren't compatible. It's sad. But it doesn't make either of you bad people.
What do her parents think about this? And if something happens to them or as they get older, will you be okay taking him in? If not, this may be a deal breaker on both sides.
Hello, you're basically me. Let's talk. My advice to you being in this exact same situation, if you don't want to do it, make it very clear right now. If it's a make or break for your fiancé, then it's over because you clearly don't want to do this, and keep in mind you don't have to. But it's likely you won't be able to have both her and not have the responsibility because she has probably signed up for this a long time ago. Was it not discussed at all while you were dating? Because you're engaged now. My partner certainly didn't bring it up with me at all, and I was completely blindsided, and it ducked us up really bad. It's a hard pill to swallow that this might be a make or break, but do not feel guilty at all for not being able to take it on or not wanting to. You are not obligated. Repeat that one more time. Not everyone is cut out for being a caregiver, and that's 100% a-okay. Someone with special needs should be with someone who wants to actually help them anyways and who knows how. It's especially difficult when they're low functioning. Around-the-clock care is no ducking joke, and there are habits and behaviors that might need to be continually kept in check. Caregiver burnout and resentment/hatred are also very real. This might also always be an area of contention between the two of you too. Doing this till you die? It sounds pretty ducking miserable. I know that in my situation, we tried it for a while, but I ended up being depressed and suicidal. Please don't be like me and let it get to that point. Save yourself a lot of pain and cut the cord fast if you absolutely don't ever want to do this. My question is, how do her parents feel about it? What do they have prepared for him? It's their main responsibility since he's their child. Is it a make or break for your fiancé? And how is she handling you saying no besides crying? What's a compromise you guys can consider? Just so you know, my partner told me I didn't love them and basically told me they'd cheat on me or leave me for someone else. They became outright abusive and her entire family is mad at me about it, but ironically, even with all her other siblings and extended relatives, not a single person called to offer help or sent a single penny to contribute to their care. Not even my partner was dedicated to the siblings' care. She just stuffed them in a room and made sure they had food. She'd verbally abuse him to the point he felt he couldn't advocate for himself, and they'd bicker all the time. She also expected me to just foot the living costs as well, while her sibling used their government funds on useless, unnecessary things to hoard in the house. It was a real ducking mess. No mature conversations could be had, no rules or boundaries put in place because my partner refused to. Ultimately, I put my foot down because I was suicidal and I refused to die over something that ultimately wasn't my responsibility and I couldn't handle financially or mentally. I don't know what your fiancé's family is like, but keep saying no if you can't ever see yourself doing this. You have the luxury to not take this on. That is a gift that many people, including your fiancé, will likely never have. Their autistic sibling is the hill they choose to die on, and they have a right to do that, but you also have the right to the future and the life of peace that you want. It's a painful and terrible position to be in for the both of you. I know ducking sucks and a lot of people would probably be quick to defend the special needs person over you, but someone else's tragedy doesn't necessarily equal your responsibility. If you want to PM me to chat about it, I'm here, dude.
Her parents will get old enough that they can't help him anymore. Sounds like this is a fundamental issue that you two need to resolve or separate over.
Jumping onto some other post suggestion, she can't just take her brother from her parents. Is this what her parents want? Is there a compromise with having a bedroom for the brother so he could come visit? If not immediately, is that something you think you could eventually afford? Are you willing to have him live with you after her parents are unable to do so? Might you even pay for a caretaker to live with you? And, just an observation, the statement you wouldn't even know he was there when referring to your own marital home seems odd.
So my twin brother is autistic, and from my experience, her saying that nobody would notice her brother being around is highly unrealistic. The time and energy that an autistic person that needs special care requires is a lot. With my brother as context, you have doctor's appointments, if a specialist, there could be a lot of travel involved, special medications that have to be taken on time, meetings with social workers and other careers. My brother had a gentleman whose role was to take my brother out so that we as a family got a break, but we also had many discussions with this gentleman about my brother and how he was doing, etc. Any special needs regarding bathing and grooming, for example, my brother needed assistance with shaving, etc. So this would impact your time with your children and together as a couple. That's simply a fact. If you live in a place with poor healthcare, there are also those funds to consider, such as medication costs. Also, what are your guys' expectations regarding care for both sets of aging parents? That could be an issue as well. Personally, I would take the time to sit her down and present your thoughts to her again. Tell her whether or not it is a deal breaker and go from there. It really sounds like not having her brother in the home with her is a deal breaker, but if you feel she might change her mind or compromise, I urge you to speak to a therapist or other professional trained in autism care together.
OP replied, I'm open to caring for him when our kids are grown and out of the house, and we have more time and means to properly care for him. My concern is that a newly married couple with kids is not going to be equipped to care for ourselves, our kids, and an adult with special needs without making serious compromises in either her brother's care or our children's care.
Whatever you all decide, you need to get on the same page before the wedding, or else call it off. I have a son with special needs as well as 2 daughters. I have made it clear that his mother and are taking great steps to ensure that they will never have to support him. They might one day be the ones making decisions for him, to the point even of custodial responsibility. But they won't have to open their homes to him. He's my son, not theirs. Your future in-laws should have been on this. This is one you absolutely must solve before getting married. And if she relents and accepts that he can't stay with you, be very clear about what that means. He can't stay with you for more than 4 nights in a month and 2 weeks in a year. And make it clear to her that this isn't something you're going to accept over time so that she doesn't harbor hopes of wearing you down. Even go so far to write something down and get her to sign it. If she says you're asking her to choose between him and you, well, she can't marry both of you. She can't marry her brother anyways, but you see my point. She has to choose between having a new family with you or raising her old family.
It is heartbreaking, but her brother needs full-time care, and your fiancé is unrealistic when she says you won't even notice that he's there. Ignoring her brother and not noticing that he's even there is not the level of love and care that he deserves. Your fiancé is very attached to him, but ask her to make a decision that's best for him. If she loves her brother, she should make a decision that's best for him. And to see what's best for him, look at what level of care you can provide, versus what her parents or professionals in a nursing or special needs facility can provide. There's love all around. You love her brother, she loves her brother, her parents love her brother, there's love all around. The difference is in the level of care and attention that he can get, that he deserves. You're starting a new family with her. You'll have kids, they'll wake you up at all hours of the night. You have jobs, you'll be tired, you won't even have much time for each other once your married life gets going. The 2 of you do not have the capacity to provide full care for her brother. The 2 of you do not argue it from this point of view. She will likely reject this argument, she will likely try to bargain with you. Let her think about it, argue about it, Let her work out her feelings. She needs to let go, and there's loss and grief in that. It'll take some time. Give her time. But don't move forward with the relationship until this is resolved. If your wedding is imminent, postpone it. You cannot proceed until she lets go, and if she doesn't, you cannot proceed. I'm sorry.
Agreed on the point that it sounds like she might be being unrealistic, but I disagree about this approach in general. It would be disrespectful for OP to try to talk her out of her fundamental desire to be deeply involved in her brother's future, which is what seems to be at the root of this. OP's fiancé has a vision for her future that involves having children and caretaking for her brother. OP, if you don't want that, you don't want that, and that's okay. Arguing about what level of hypothetical care you will be able to provide as a couple with your hypothetical children is beside the point at best, manipulative at worst, because really, even as I'm saying it sounds like OP's fiancé might be being unrealistic, none of us outside her family are the experts here. She is the one who has watched him grow up, and who most intimately understands what kind of care he needs to thrive. Perhaps she's saying you'll barely notice he's there because she has a high enough level of practice around providing what he needs that it really would be no issue for her. Again, OP, it's okay if that's not what you'd like to sign up for, but it feels a little condescending and presumptuous for all of us, OP as commenters, to be deciding for her that she's not capable. If you're not getting married because you deeply care about supporting each other to have the kind of future you'd each like, why on earth would you be getting married?
Your feelings are valid, but understand so are hers, and she's going to end things if you don't budge. No one's fault, just wasn't meant to be if that's how you feel.
He's a very low-functioning autistic, to the extent that he will need full-time supervision and care for the rest of his adult life. You won't even notice he's there and that he can really take care of himself. He just needs supervision is all. Nope, nope, nope. A low-functioning autistic person being in your care is anything but a small thing that you'll barely notice. This is a huge commitment and will define the rest of your life. It sounds like she is in some denial about her brother. Unless you are both 100% on board, you will end up resenting her, and if she's not 100% on board with not taking care of her brother, she will end up resenting you. You two are envisioning two very different futures for your lives.
If you marry her, you will end up as lifetime caregiver or it will end in divorce. Know this if you choose to marry her.
This is a conversation that will make or break this relationship. Someone is going to have to give if this relationship is going to continue. Either you will cave and the two of you will take him in, or she will cave and other arrangements will be made. Some questions I have. 1. Is the no to taking him in a temporary answer, or is this a stance you will maintain long after her parents are gone and your children have grown up? 2. Are outside caretakers, care centers, or the like a viable option for the two of you? 3. What happens when her parents pass away? 4. If you cannot reach an agreement that the two of you are happy with, where does the relationship go from there, and why was this never discussed at any point before the two of you got engaged? You are well within your rights to put your foot down on this subject. Many people cannot handle that level of responsibility, especially indefinitely. But understand that this will almost certainly be the deal breaker. Don't cave and say yes if you cannot genuinely commit to the role and be a good caretaker. There's no shame in saying I cannot do this. But you have to be honest yet empathetic about the situation.
We don't know how old the parents are, or the status of their health. It seems like maybe she wants to have the brother established firmly with her before her parents are either too old or dead to care for him. A series of gradual transitions, as opposed to total chaotic upheaval, with the possible added blast of grief, depending on which way it goes. I highly doubt that OP and sister were very far along in the dating stage when she shared her plans for the future. Since OP reports that they spend a lot of time together and are very close, it's likely she has been pretty upfront all along. The fact of the matter is that families of people with special needs are always trying to anticipate needs, and they worry about their loved one's future. The brother will require care for the rest of his life, and sooner or later it will fall to the sister to be his advocate and govern his situation. Is for Autism does a good job of presenting the type of sibling relationship that it seems these two in the OP share. Truthfully, they do a spectacular job of highlighting a lot of things without being too sappy or overly dramatic. If she has always been instinctively responsible and sensitive to his needs, she has more than a typical sibling bond, and likely there are some almost parental overtones involved. For the fur parents, think of a dog that you had to bottle feed who is now 9 years old. And how many people in the world broke up with someone because of something dog related? Let's just say in the last 2 hours? OP doesn't have to stay in the relationship, but I think that if he wants to, he's going to have to find a way to sincerely embrace the idea of the autistic brother as part of the package. Not be okay with or do it because she says I have to. Sincerely embrace, otherwise, everyone will suffer.
Realistically, between medical school, residency, and potential children between you, you will not have the resources to take care of someone who needs constant supervision and has no potential to become independent. Is the plan that your fiancé has for her to give up work to take care of her brother full-time? If so, that's an unfair expectation on you to financially support 3 people and work 100-hour weeks to come home to someone who needs constant care that you didn't ask for. Your fiancé has presumably always taken care of him in the context of having her parents as backup. Does she appreciate just how exhausting and thankless being a full-time career is? Does she want a career? You need to try and have an open and honest conversation about this because it sounds like a deal breaker. Spoiler, you will notice he's there.
I'm not marrying her for her family. Look, I get it. You're marrying the individual, but this individual's family is an integral part of their identity. I don't really know what to tell you. You're marrying her, not her sans family.
I am going to tell you right now. I'm a father of a special needs boy. I love my kid, he's amazing. If he wasn't my son, I would not be here to cope with this. You and your wife wanna go out? Who's gonna take care of him? If there is someone, you need to be on time. You need to keep your phone on you and be ready to leave at a moment's notice because will a multitude of reasons. Be fully aware that your life will revolve around him, making arrangements and being there for whatever reason. Also, caretaker fatigue is real, very very real. If you want to talk about it more, and I mean the realistic version not the fairy tale version, feel free to DM me. Did you ask her to marry you knowing she wanted to take in her brother? If so, this is on you. If this is a situation where she recently started wanting to do this, then you need to flat out say you're not marrying her if it means taking in her brother. You didn't ask for that, and you have a right to say no. Even if her parents can take care of him, at some point he will have to find housing, and whether it's now or 20 years down the line she will want to care for him. She has a right to do this. Do not marry this woman thinking she will change her mind.
Please read, I have a mentally disabled 27-year-old daughter and a healthy 22-year-old son. I get where your fiancé is coming from. I get that her parents are getting old and it will get more and more difficult and eventually they can't do the care anymore. I have dreamed for my son being the caretaker of my daughter one day, as a faraway dream, not anything pursued, when he was a teen. But then I realized that this would not be fair. Not fair on my son and not fair on my daughter. My son doesn't want to stay in one place when he finishes university. He wants to work everywhere in the world and I will not destroy his dreams. On the other hand, disabled people need routine, the same sheltered workshop, the same environment, etc. Plus, a mentally disabled person needs just that, a sheltered workshop or a sheltered special daycare to give them a fulfilled life. My son is her brother. It will be his responsibility to make sure my daughter is safe and happy one day, as best he can. But that doesn't mean he must do the caring. We are on a waiting list for group living, post-COVID. Not because we don't want our daughter with us any longer. Her room will always be her room, she will be home on some weekends or holidays, etc. But we want her to have a place to call home that is hers and most important before anything goes wrong. We want to go slowly. Have trial stays and see she is happy there. We want to have the chance to pull back and say let us try another one until it fits. If we wait until we are dead, she won't have that time and slow progression. That would not be fair not only on her, but on my son, too. My son's job when we are gone one day will be to call her regularly and to check on her occasionally unannounced so that he knows she is safe and happy where she is. If he lives overseas, he has cousins that will help on the occasional check and to invite her over every few months. The cherry on the cake is if he and his cousins would take turns in taking her in for Christmas or showing up and inviting her to a movie for her birthday. I hope that will happen. Please show your fiancé this post. It is time for her to talk to her parents about a solution. As a compromise, you can offer to take her brother in every other weekend. Many group homes make trips and other special things to help the group bonding on the weekends, so go by bi-weekly weekend home trips. Her brother could call your place home, but you two can live your life, too. Important, there are care levels of assisted living situations and they change as the person improves. I.e., he can start in a family-like closely monitored group, where there is a caretaker present at all times. Then there are groups where the caretaker only comes in once in the evening to talk about schedules or appointments, updates a chore list, etc. The people are like roommates at college. They have their own personal space and a shared living situation, but they have somebody to overlook it all. The last stage before real independence is if they have their own individual apartments and a caretaker comes in once or twice a week to ask if there are any problems, etc. If your fiancé gets her brother in one of those group programs, he can grow. And who knows what he is capable of. He might be fine on his own one day if he isn't coddled. I just want to add that if these changes happen now, her parents can even take turns with you on the home weekends. The transgression will go much more slowly and smoothly for her parents, too. Taking care of their son once a month is probably manageable for a much longer time than doing so full time. So, you will have him once a month for a couple of years, before you have him every second weekend. A win-win for all.
Her parents won't be alive forever. She is a good person trying to do her best and plan for the future. She is minimizing herself in order to also keep you. If you can't handle living with her brother, you need to break up.
Please look into respite care and resources available in your area. There are many options, and often the government is able to support and make things less intimidating. Also, there are many other ways this can work. For example, I worked for many years as an in-home aide for adults with special needs. The two women I worked for, both with significant Down syndrome, lived in their own apartment, subsidized housing, with 24-hour support. Also, these options don't have to be so black and white. Maybe you could start having her brother stay with you guys every other weekend. It might be that she is feeling very worried about her parents getting older and not being able to take care of him as they age. Starting slow might be best, both to help reassure your wife that you still want her brother to be a part of your family, want to support her parents, but also to open the door to discussion of more options. Please look into the other options though, and remember, having a child with special needs means her parents have sacrificed their entire life for him. One of the women I worked for, it was her mom's first time not having her in the house. She said, "The first night she was gone I went to sleep so worried. Then I woke up in the morning and for the first time in 27 years I was able to think, what do I want to do this morning? I could get a coffee, I could go on a walk, I could turn on the TV."
That last quote is so haunting to me for some reason, and it genuinely makes my heart hurt. I genuinely can't imagine how it feels to not have time for yourself for that long. I'm not even close to 27 years old. It's strange that there are people who are chronically lonely and yet there are people who could use some time alone. I also can't imagine what the kids think in a situation like this, if the feeling of being a burden disturbs them, even though it's not their fault. Stand your ground and don't budge. I am a child that grew up with a low-functioning adult with mental illness in my house that my mother insisted on taking care of. It was the worst period of my parents' relationships, and I was partially robbed of my childhood because then I had to start taking care of that mentally ill person even as a child, and sometimes I would enter my house and would come across an entire room dismantled. You two have absolutely no idea what you are getting into. Also, I do not want to sound accusatory, but you are finishing med school and are likely to get a decent paying job. I'm 100% sure she will make you take up his expenses at some point, so the argument about you not noticing him there is bull. You have no idea what you are getting into. Don't get trapped. It never ends well. I'm sure he is great, but if he moves in, your relationship will deteriorate. I'm warning you. I have experienced this myself. And forget having children alongside this situation. No one deserves the childhood I had.
I get that you don't want to take on this responsibility preemptively. I will say, I'm going to chime in as the oldest child with two younger siblings who both have disabilities. I have been with my boyfriend for 5 years and he has always known that when my parents are not able, I will be 100% the main caretaker of them. Whether this happens tomorrow or in 20 years for us, he understands and knows this. I feel for your fiancé, and I honestly feel as though you both may be incompatible if you cannot find common ground on this. If the time span became expedited and you both needed to step in tomorrow, would you still feel this way? If yes, I think you may need to rethink this relationship.
It sounds like this might be a deal breaker for her.
This is a fight that will have no winner or a happy ending.
OP, I'm afraid this is a fundamental incompatibility you're not going to get around. Whomever your fiancé winds up with, the brother is going to be part of a package deal. And I'm also guessing that her parents have been gently nudging this in her direction. Oh, he's going to be a doc, and can take better care of him. You'll be lonely when he's working, so he can live with you. Don't marry into trouble.
Be honest, is it that you don't want to take care of him, or is it that you think his parents would be a better fit? Don't lie to yourself and to your partner. I don't blame you if you don't want to, I wouldn't want to either. I just think you can't use that as an excuse forever. She keeps bringing it up, you might have to tell her the truth and figure it out from there.
You are both 24 with no real experience of taking care of your own selves in a household setting with children. I don't think you guys are even equipped mentally and physically to care for her brother. She is really underestimating the toll it is going to take and how much her life is going to be affected by him as a low-functioning autistic person. Like others have said, you guys really need a proper talk with organized points prepared. Ending with tears and I imagine frustrated outbursts is already a telltale sign of your current compatibility. If this is how you guys are going to tackle every big life problem, the future is going to be a terrible environment for her brother and your kids when you have them.
I'm not marrying her for her family. If you enter any marriage, with your current fiancé or a different one down the road, and this is your attitude, you're going to have a bad time. Especially if your partner is family oriented, which it sounds like your fiancé is. Life is really long. You will get to know each other's families really well and will spend a lot of time with both sides. If you have kids, the time you spend with each other's family will multiply several times over. My family drives me, and my husband, crazy sometimes. His family drives me crazy. We are both family oriented and this compatibility has been so good because we are almost always on the same page and supportive of the other wanting to spend time with their family, even if we don't always want to. We have a 7-month-old son and the amount of time we spend with family has greatly increased since he was born, just our sets of parents during COVID and now more extended family as they get vaccinated. Anyway, all this to say, it seems that you view the care of her brother as a logistical problem to work out, and to her, ensuring he is well taken care of is a moral obligation that she intends to fulfill. There is no way to compromise on an issue like that, and I think you are missing how deep this topic runs for her.
I mean, as soon as the parents die, where is he going?
Don't get married. Your fiancé is making it clear she will have to take care of her brother, if not now, at least when her parents pass away. You do not want to take on that responsibility. Neither of you are wrong, but you should not get married.
My wife has an adult, 30-year-old, autistic sister that her parents care for. She can be left home alone for short periods of time. It's taken a tremendous toll on her parents' marriage. Your fiancé is either naive or being disingenuous when she says you won't notice he's here. Cold hard reality is that this is a major issue that the two of you need to resolve before marriage. She has every right to want to take over care for her brother, and you are not a bad guy for not wanting to take that on. It's a life-changing decision that should not be taken lightly and one that could put your entire relationship into question.
I mean, you're being pretty unreasonable here. You don't get to say you're marrying her and not her family. That's not what marriage is or has ever been for the vast majority of people and the world. She comes with a brother. She's expressed multiple times throughout your time together this is the future she envisions for herself. If this is something you don't want, you break up with her. You don't convince her you're right, put your foot down, lay down the law, etc. You break up because you're incompatible. Your fiancé may not have the strength to do it because she's feeling coerced between choosing her handicapped sibling or the person she loves, so you have to be the bigger person. I think you need to accept that her brother is part of her package, and if you can't handle that, it's not fair to keep wasting her time. Your fiancé and her brother sound very similar to my cousins. She's very protective of her autistic brother, and I can 100% see her willingly wanting to take over that role for her parents when my aunt and uncle can no longer. For you, it's a choice. To her, it's her family, and the idea of not supporting her brother is unthinkable. It's not even an option, which explains why she gets so upset. Your finance needs someone who respects and understands that her vulnerable, autistic brother is likely going to be a higher priority to her than her future husband at times. If living with and even helping at times and being guardian to her brother is something you simply cannot do, you owe it to her to be honest. I've taken a lot of time to consider it, and as much as I like her brother, I'm not marrying her for her family. Then you are not the right life partner for her. The fact is, getting married is becoming family with that person. I get it's a big ask, but she deserves a partner in life who's ready to love her and her brother. You say you love her brother, but you don't love her brother the way she needs a life partner to love her brother.
It would be in your best interest to find out if her parents are discussing this with her, and if she's already made a promise to them about it. It's a little underhanded if she's under intense pressure because she already made a promise and she's not telling you. You are both talking about a decision that doesn't need to be made for at least another 10 to 15 years, but it seems like she's trying to make that decision for the both of you after you graduate med school. She doesn't get to make that decision for you both. I don't think your fiancé has any idea how hard life's going to be once you have a couple kids running around and a busy schedule for you both. She's really not putting much thought into life you guys are trying to build, while also having a place available for her brother. There's only so much of her to go around in that scenario. I had to make the same choice with my brother. I have 2 kids now, a mortgage, and me and my wife work demanding jobs. I simply don't have the time or the resources to dedicate to my brother, plus whatever decision I would make in that regard would severely affect my marriage and my ability to raise my kids in a healthy environment. Every person has to make this choice for themselves.